off, and back on. Hey, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for being here. This is video 1 of 6 of a series I'm doing on drums. We're gonna mix some drums. I love mixing drums. They're so much fun, and I'm gonna show you exactly what I do, and you get to watch the whole process. So check it out. Here we go. All of my drums are here in purple, and I'm bussing all of these drums out to a drum bus right here, which I'm going to do some bus processing on. First order of business that I kind of want to bring up, I start with a tape machine on every channel and this virtual console collection on every channel. And I'm using the Brit 4K-E console, which is an SSL 4000. I love the sound of that console. I start with those on because I just like the color that they bring. And then I do all of my mixing. And sometimes I go in and modify the tape or the console, but usually not. They usually just sit in one spot and just kind of start by informing the sound with a little bit of analog color. So that's what that is. There's also a virtual console collection on the drum bus here as well. Let's put this back to 0. So we're starting from scratch. Okay, so the first thing that I do is I go through the channels and I just bring faders up and listen to them and get a rough blend of the kit. So let's do that. So that's a kick in. A kick out. Okay, let's bring some snare in. No, we're not playing snare right now. Let's go to a section with snare. So this is one thing I want to talk about right away. In terms of getting sounds, when you have multiple mics on a source, don't fight what the microphone is doing. So I just turned down my kick out because my kick was too boomy. If you listen to the two signals, this is a very boomy kick. And then this is kind of a snappier kick. The kick in's a little bit snappier. So with this all the way up here, I was like, it's a little too much low end. Don't fight it. Just use each individual signal for what it is. Too much low end in this scenario, I'm just going to bring that back down. It's a little more balanced. Okay, let's check out these toms. These toms, I believe, are being used in verse 1. You'll notice too, I have the toms panned, the rack toms panned to the left, 45, and the floor toms panned to the right, 80. I always mix drums. This is kind of like a weird producer argument. I always mix drums from the drummer's perspective, not the audience's perspective, because I grew up playing drums, and I just can't fathom the sound of a rack tom on my right-hand side when I spent 2 decades playing it on my left-hand side. So, yeah, so drums are from the drummer's perspective in my mixes. Bring in some overheads. Let's find a spot where we're playing cymbals. And then let's bring in a room. What does this room sound like? Room sounds super cool. Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a great starting place. What I'm noticing is that I'm hitting this drum bus kind of hot. This is hotter than I want it to be. So I'm just going to turn on my drums group and bring the entire kit down so that I'm hitting this bus a little bit more reasonably. Okay. So there's a blend of the kit. The first thing that I do now that I have a blend, and this is kind of counterintuitive to the way a lot of people mix, is called top-down mixing. And what top-down mixing means is you kind of start at the macro and then work your way back to the individual. So instead of going through and mixing all of these individual channels, I'm actually going to start at the drum bus. And just a friendly reminder, I do have this console, the virtual console collection, on the drum bus, so it's doing its thing. But I'm going to do all of my bus processing first. And the reason I do that is because I'm going to make decisions that affect the overall tone of the entire drum kit. And I don't want to make those decisions after I've gone through and EQ'd and compressed and done all of the little micro moves on each of the individual drums. I want to get a vibe first and then mix into that vibe. So for me, the drum mix starts at the drum bus. So we're going to open up this 33609 and dial in a little bit of drum compression first. And I have this 33609 on first for a specific reason. I use this to just control the kit a little bit. It's going to be very, very subtle, like annoyingly subtle, but it's going to pull down some of the hardest and heaviest hits. And the reason I want to do that is because the next plugins that I'm going to open up on this drum bus are saturation plugins. And so they're going to have the tendency to want to clip the signal. And I want to compress those higher peaks, those higher transients before going into a clipping stage so that I don't clip quite as aggressively and I can kind of control that clipping a little bit better. So let's dial in some compression here. I always just scroll through presets and find something that I think is cool. And then I don't think twice about it. So that's what I'm going to do. So you can see this one's grabbing just like a little bit of the snare. So this one's called Drum Bus Snappy, and that's about what it feels like. That one feels a little more choked. This one feels more opened up. I like that more. I like the energy that the parallel brings. Okay, so I love what this compressor is doing already to the kit. So this is a drum parallel, which means there's both dry signal and wet signal. So if you look down here, the dry wet knob is about halfway, which means it's about half the dry signal or uncompressed signal and half the wet signal. And I think that's really cool because you could, the traditional way that you would do this is you would do it on two different channels. But in the digital world, I just find that kind of creates phasing, and I like doing the parallel compression thing all in one plugin. That's what's happening here, and I'm kind of down for it. So I'm just going to mess with this a little bit. It's creating a little bit too much pumping for me, so we're going to see if we can back it off a bit, and then we're going to move on to the next plugin. One other thing, important thing to notice about this, and I do this all the time when I'm bus compressing drums, there's this sidechain filter. And what this filter does is it changes what frequency range the compressor is compressing. So in this particular scenario, it goes all the way up to, if I were to turn it all the way up, it would go all the way up to 500 hertz. That means anything below 500 hertz doesn't get hit by the compressor. And the reason you do this is because if you, let's put it back where it was. Let's just look at this gain reduction here. We're doing a moderate 1 to 2 dB of reduction. If I were to pull this off, what that means is it's going to start compressing more of the low end, and you'll notice we're now doing heavier compression. So what this does is it allows the low end frequencies through the compressor untouched so that you can use the compressor to control, you know, your snares and toms a little bit more as opposed to just having the kick drum blow it up. So I find this super, super useful. Just out of curiosity, if I were to listen to just the compressed signal, it just gets a little choked and tight. So you let some of that dry back in. It's not quite as apparent. Let's just back this threshold off so we're doing a little less. So this is out. Obviously we have a big volume jump. It doesn't really bother me at this stage. I'm just listening for energy. And I love the energy I feel out of this. So I'm happy with that. Let's move to the next plugin. This is the Silver Bullet from Plugin Alliance, and it's called a Silver Bullet because it's, well, if you know what a silver bullet is, that's what this does. This emulates analog circuitry. So all we're doing is we're going to scroll through presets here again, and we're just going to find an analog circuit emulation that jives with this drum kit, and then again, not think twice about it. Sometimes I feel like people think too much when they mix, and they don't just like let things happen and listen to their ears and go, yeah, that's cool. Let's go. Let's use it. So that's all we're doing here. We're just going to scroll through a few presets and see what sounds cool. It blows up too much. like that. It's a little too much. That's kind of fun. So we've got the British size large. Let's compare that to, it was like neve to tape. Ooh, I think I like the British size large more. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. We're definitely hot coming out of this plugin. I'm sure that we're hot coming out of the 33609 too. But I'm just going to back this off a touch. So all we're doing is we're changing the output volume. But with just these two plugins alone, listen to these bypassed. And now back on. We've already really changed the makeup of this drum kit in a very pleasing way. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to do another plugin. This is my probably favorite plugin of all time. This is the Decapitator. If you don't have the Decapitator, just go get the Decapitator. It goes on sale every so often. It rips. I'm going to start with the E. These are all different analog presets. So again, they just emulate analog feels. I pretty much only use E and T, but they rip so hard. So let's pump some of this in. Amazing. Then I'm going to go with E. Let's back off that mix again. So we're mixing in the not saturated signal from this with the saturated signal. So we're actually doing parallel work twice, all on this bus, which is super fun. Cool. The only thing left that we can do is we can drive this console harder. So let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, let's double check our output. We'll back that off a little bit. Okay, so check this out. Just on the drum bus. This is where we started. Off. And back on. It's just a little bit of compression and then analog emulation, which is just a fancy way of saying saturation or light distortion. I always start here because we've already made the drums sound like they were hit harder, sound more exciting, sound punchier, sound warmer, sound brighter. We've done so much work, and now that this is dialed in a spot, it's not necessarily going to stay exactly there, but we've already captured a vibe of the whole drum kit. And now we can go back to the channels and begin working individually on each individual input to bring that particular piece of the kit to life. So if you want to check that out, make sure you follow me. It'll be in the next video.